Hi, yeah, my name is Cathy Belton and I'm an actress.
Hi, Cathy. Thanks so much
Great.
for taking part in this.
A pleasure.
I suppose I'm going to start where I've kind of started with everyone. Take me back to Cathy Belton as a child. Was a child destined to end up with the life on the stage that you've had?
I don't think so. I don't think I set out to be an actress at the beginning, but I think coming from Galway has a lot to do with why I'm an actress. So many different phases of that. There was no actors in my family or anything like that. But in the parish, Renmore, where I grew up, there was an awful lot of pantomime at Christmas time. There was an amazing man called Joe McCarthy, and he directed the Renmore pantomime every year. I think it's still going on. It is still going on today. And my family were involved helping out, with PR. And my sister, there was young little dancers called the Smurfs, and she was in that. And the ambition was to be a Smurf, but I was far too tall for my age, never could be in the Smurfs. So that was there every Christmas. And it was a magical time. You were gearing up for that, being in the school hall. And then I got in eventually as a dancer, and then I had in at 15 I played Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and I thought I had it. I was so happy. And the director of principals was one Sabina Higgins, Michael D. Higgins' wife. They were living in Renmore, and Sabina had gone to the Focus Theatre, and she came back, and it was kind of an amazing, like, education. Like, she was bringing, the method back, and we didn't even know it. I still remember going, I want you to smell the porridge, Kathy. Mad! But I loved it. I just loved it. I was also very lucky. I was quite shy as a kid. My sister was the extrovert, but I think that's true of a lot of actors. I think it's a shy man's profession. And mom and dad thought it'd be a good idea just to bring me out myself. They sent me to drama classes up in the school hall. And there was an amazing woman, Rebecca Bartlett. She was an actress and a great drama
I
teacher.
know, yeah.
She's extraordinary. And she set me on the path. That's when I started to feel my place in the world, in myself. It was just amazing. So I was with her for years, um, playing. And then there was the community games. Do you remember the community
Yes.
games? So there was the variety shows, and Galway were very well, always up there in the top three. And I did that during the summer as, 15, 16-year-old. We're up in a school hall rehearsing to play the band. It was a 15-minute show. So all that was going on. I knew the bug had bitten. I didn't know how I was going to go forward. Nobody in my family had ever done anything like this, but that's where I found my place. And then I had a road to Damascus moment. Mom and dad always went to, everybody in Galway went to the Druids. Everyone. That's what you did. Um, and I remember seeing Conversations of a Homecoming where I was 14. And I remember coming out to Druid Lane, and it was just that real. I'd never experienced such magic. I was transported for 2.5 hours. There they were. I could touch them. I could touch Maureen Mullen and Sean McGinley, that amazing production that Gary Hines directed. And although I was probably too young to realize exactly what was going on, like, the deeper darkness of the play, I never felt such pain and emotion and, and hilarity. And that was the moment. I still put that down to the moment going, I want to do what they did because I can't believe the magic they're throwing. So, yeah. So,
That's interesting, I think, because the sense of kind of, before that, kind of, nosing your way in or kind of finding, or that feeling starting to emerge as it sounds in yourself, and then having that kind of moment in the dark,
yeah, yeah, whistling in the dark. Whistling in the, yeah. Um, yeah, but I don't think I see it, we were surrounded in it. The Galway International Arts Festival was starting, and getting to see things like Royal Deluxe in the Cathedral car park. I don't think you could avoid the arts in Galway. And if you didn't join the tribe, you certainly were nourished and touched by it. And I guess I wanted to join the circus, the
how,
tribe.
how did that move then as you kind of went through secondary school? Like, how
Uh,
was Like, were your parents starting to notice the difference, like, sort of in your reaction?
In my personality. um, they knew, they could see I was bitten, but they you know, all they wanted was me and my sister. They just wanted happy kids. Whatever we wanted to do in life, you do it. I think they were aware of how tough it was, and I guess, you know, um, they were afraid for me. They really were. Would I handle it? I have a thin skin, but I don't think most actors have. That's part of the dichotomy of what we do. So they supported me, and you know, I remember them driving up to the finals in Butlins, Mosney, for the community games. You know, and it's all in our maroon tracksuits, and we won. And there was bonfires in Renmore when we were driving home. I'll never forget it. It was like we won the All Ireland. So they were always there supporting and giving lips, and you know, whatever made us happy. So then through secondary school, I was still, you know, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know what, you know, I didn't know how I would cope going straight to, at that time, there was no Lear. So you'd either have to go away to London to RADA or Central or something. But the drama department had just opened in Samuel Beckett in Trinity. So I applied for the degree course, which is, I did English and drama. And I think mum and dad thought I wouldn't get it. And I did. But I think it was in myself as well. If I do the English and this all goes tits up, I'll have something to fall back on. But I knew exactly what I was doing. The minute I hit Trinity, players and sitting in lectures and learning about Peter Brook and watching great theatre, and God, I went to so much theatre at night. Do you know, the Abbey, the gate on your doorstep.
But was there kind of an immersion? Like, were you heavily involved in kind of players as well as?
Oh, yeah. Oh God, yeah. I slept and breathed players. Yeah. Loved every second of it, and got to work with amazing people, and you know, so many people in the business now, like our glorious Jim Cullerton, you name it, they're all, you know, still in the business.
Yeah.
So that was part of it. Now the drama course was brilliant.
It used to come up kind of a lot in a lot of these conversations about, you know, different levels of finding your tribe. There's the finding your tribe, you know, as a child in many different ways.
Yeah.
But when you leave technical school, you leave the home, maybe when you kind of go into college, there's, you know, a whole new sense of, not necessarily more professional, but more as you're older, that kind of sense of, and the drama societies seem to have played a huge part in so many people's, especially around those eras, you know, that it kind of when there wasn't the schools. And was it purely acting, Cathy, at that stage, or were you kind of involved in any other aspects of it?
Oh God, I was. I remembered directing the Freshers Co-op in my second year with Gemma Bodenese, who runs Liverpool Rep now. And I remember I had just Lissa Strata, and I remember Dominic West walking in the door to audition for us. And I remember him walking in the door, and me and Gemma going, he hasn't opened his mouth, but he's got the part. We just had it. Do you know what I mean? And Mario Rosenstock, Annie Ryan, you know. So yeah, I directed, but my heart was on the boards. I stage managed. I was a terrible stage manager. I am in awe of stage managers. I really am. I remember I tried to do lights, operate lights, and I nearly passed out. Yeah, it was great, but oh Christ.
What was that feeling? I mean, I'm just interested in like, from working with actors myself, that kind of feeling that you get when you, not necessarily when you know it's a good performance, but that feeling you get from being in the rehearsal room, from being on stage. Does that stay constant with you kind of throughout your career? That kind of, I don't know, whatever kind of feeling it kind of gives you.
I've been in a rehearsal room with my tribe.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing like it. I think, you know, collaboration isn't it in the prologue of Play by the Western World? All art is a collaboration. You're nothing without the people around you, and that idea of play just excites me still now. First day of rehearsals, I am like a child. I just love it. And I think theatre in particular has that great facility to truly collaborate with people's hearts and souls.
Mm.
And having that, learning that language in college, um, and having that platform like players and like the drama department to fail. It didn't matter, but we're throwing up plays during the summer, and you know, if they were good, they were good. A lot of them were absolute rubbish. But that, you know, that was the best training ground I had,
Yeah.
was being given the freedom to fail
Yeah.
and then learn to fail better.
So then that kind of another seismic moment for everyone is when they kind of leave that space or when they kind of emerge from there. So was it kind of then like you were going to be, that's what it was, you were going to be a professional
Yeah,
actor?
yeah. I was terrified, Mark, and I still am. Oh, genie Macus, like it's terrifying. But I had to do it. In those days. So in my last year, I did the Erasmus exchange,
Okay.
and I ended up in Paris with Dominic and two other dear friends of mine, Leslie and Emer. And I remember then I got to see great theatre, Peter Brooks,
Wow.
The Tempest, and you know, and I came back and I remember going, we had to finish our degree then just before exams, and Brian Singleton had just taken over the drama department, and I will thank him to this day because he was the person who, you know, you come back and you're going, oh my God, I have to get nothing, you know, take what I've learned there, do the finals or whatever. And I thank him for keeping me on the straight and narrow and getting me through. So the day I graduated, I remember I was very lucky, and I think I'd love to talk about this. I got a part in a play by Walter Mackin called Home is the Hero with Island Theatre Company in Limerick.
Right.
So Mum and Dad, we did the graduation and they had to drive me to Limerick that night. And I thought, I haven't made not out of the gown and I'm working. Little did I know. But we were so lucky then. There were so many companies around the country that you learned your apprenticeship with. That's when the real training started for me. And my heart breaks for actors nowadays, younger actors. Those companies are gone, and that training ground is gone. And I really admire them, how they had to make and create their own work and become makers, which is, I'm in awe. I don't know how they do it.
That's come up a lot in relation to actors and then having to become makers for different reasons in the last kind of decade, and you know, very successfully as well. But certainly when I was kind of coming out of college, that if you were doing lots of different things, you were kind of seen as being bad at them all, rather than it being a kind of and I think, but also someone was talking to me the other week about the actor as an actor, that, you know, there's a craft in that in itself. It's like the writer as the writer, and I think that's been hugely changed over the last kind of 20, 30 years. And you're right, that sense of being able to kind of have your apprenticeship as an actor, working with all of these companies, is way difficult. But also, how did you end up going to Limerick? I mean, were they all auditioning in Dublin around that time?
I don't know how I ended up with the gig. I guess I found out about the auditions and went down on the train and auditioned for Terry Devlin, who ran the company at the time, and got the part, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. And it was brilliant, Mark, because after that I developed a relationship with Ireland, and I worked a lot with them, and I got to play parts that I wouldn't necessarily have got in Dublin on the main stages because I was only making my way. So I got to do Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, all the great classics, Ariel and the Tempest, that I would never have got. And that's where I think I learned a lot of my craft.
Okay.
You know, and it was great, and I came up with wonderful people again, you know, that are still in my life, my closest friends. And yeah, I think that was really important for me.
And then from that, Cathy, like, because, you know, as I said to you before we started recording, you're in the midst of such an amazing career across all different kind of acting forms, I suppose. So rather than kind of, you know, because I will forget something that I'm going to regret afterwards.
So will I.
But I suppose what interests me is from that moment then, from that kind of, you know, Island years, and was there kind of a seminal point around that time that you kind of went, okay, I'm entering a different path now, or it's kind of real for me or not real for me?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Good question. I went on from there, and I was lucky. I got a part. Gary Hines cast me in Tom Murphy playing the Abbey with my heroes. They were like with Sean McGinley and Marie and Crucial Week in the Life of a
Yeah,
Grocer Assistant. And that was huge. That set me on something else, you know. Um, and Monica Frawley, God rest her beautiful, gifted soul. I mean, like the best of the creme de la creme. And Tom, the reason why I was. So that was a big, you know, that was such a step up. And the kindness and the goodness of people and the patience. I learned so much watching them. I remember I used to sit at the side of the stage. I'd hunker into a little black hole, do my pieces, and just to watch people like Marie and Sean and John Cowley. Do you remember John
yeah,
Cowley from? And he had the little quick change dressing room by the side of the Abbey stage. And I used to go down to him every night before the show and have a little cup of tea. And the stories and I'll never forget them as long as I live. I mean, I learned so much from those people. And I think that's something that's really hard for actors now, because that notion of the ensemble or the rep or the lack of company, you're not getting to work with the people above you, you
yeah,
know, that you learn so much from.
yeah,
And that really helped me learn.
yeah.
And then, of course, after that, there was massive unemployment, and you keep going, and you know, you get bits and pieces, and you keep going. And there was a stage marker, and I've said in many interviews that I decided, I can't handle this. It's too tough. It's
And was
just
it the was it the because that's interesting, that you know, I've read about you talking about this before, and I kind of want to have a chat to you about it. But just to go back there, I mean, I saw that production in the Abbey, and I mean, the set was extraordinary. I mean, the production was like, but like the whole, yeah, it was just gorgeous. And I think there was a moment there of a lot of people on that one stage together during that time, which was kind of. But for you, having a few years earlier, to say, kind of had that awakening in Druid Lane must have been incredible.
oh, it was like I'm glad I relished every single second of it. Do you know? I knew it was important. I knew this wasn't going to happen on every show. You
Yeah,
know, the one sense,
yeah.
um, and watching, just watching them on stage was amazing.
And so then, was it when things kind of got tough for you? Was it about kind of having the? Because not a lot of people talk about having to wait. You weren't in control of something. It's always about waiting on things, waiting on the phone to ring, waiting on. Had that become difficult?
Yeah, I think it had, and I think it just, I wasn't happy. I was, you know, I was going for stuff or not getting it or not getting. Do you mind if we pause for a
Yeah.
second, Mark? The door's waving here.
So when you kind of said you kind of started to struggle or find it tough, was it kind of the waiting and the waiting on phone calls or being not in control? So was that kind of what was driving that? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it was the lack of control. I'm a Capricorn. I don't know much about stars, but I know Capricorns like their routines, and they like to plod it very slowly up. I mean, why? I'm an actress. Oh, Jesus. But anyways, I am, and I can't help it. I think it was the lack of control. I think it was not knowing the rejection. I
Yeah,
think rejection, you know, going up for stuff, not getting stuff. I don't think TV and film, it just didn't happen in my time. There was a couple of movies being made, and that was it now, which is great for the young generation coming out now. There was so much TV and film being made here. But there wasn't at this stage. It was just theatre. So I had a good think, but I always, and I still do, I always thought if I wasn't an actress, I'd love to be a national school teacher. I just love kids. I think they're fucking amazing. I just love them, and their hope and their dreams and what you can do, you know, to change their lives. So I was going to go back and do that thing where I had the English degree, you could do
oh
a
yeah,
year and then you were, so I had taken the summer and got a job in the CAO in Galway, moved back home. And I remember what's his name from the town hall? Oh my God, Diskin.
Mike Diskin, yeah.
Coming into the office in the CAO because there was auditions for Eclipse by Patricia Burke-Brogan, and walking out, and it was like, it really was a Jerry Maguire moment. There was like about 20 women in the room, and him just walking in and coming down to my desk and going, "What the feck are you doing?" And I was just like, kind of going, I'm going to be a teacher and I'm going to have money and a car, not this shit. And he said, "Would you just take the part?" I think I'd audition for it. Or he asked me to audition for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got it. And that went on a tour around Ireland. So I was still kind of going, okay, I'll do it, but, you know, I'm not up to this. And then we went on a tour around Ireland and I got an audition. I got a part in Glenroe.
Yeah.
And I think it was a great gift because it gave me the solidity I needed to get the legs under me again and just get that year or two where it's like, this is what you're doing, you know, this is what you're doing. It also, again, working with amazing people who, you know, top of their games, but it also gave me that year to go, those 2 years to go, yeah, that's what I do. And I was lucky to just get the, you know, that solid body of work that gave me the courage to go, yes, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
It's kind of incredible though, those sliding moments or sliding doors moments where,
oh God, yeah,
you know,
oh Mark, absolutely. I mean, what, I don't know, would I could be teaching amazing kids today and not, and I you know, I'd be very sad because I think this business is extraordinary.
I think it's interesting as well, you know, looking back on your career so far, is kind of, you've, you know, had the opportunity and been part of, you know, seminal work in our cultural landscape. You know what I mean? Like Glenroe.
Yeah.
That
was huge. I still remember in school as a kid, Miley and Dinny coming down to open an ATM machine in their square. Thousands of people. They were, Jesus, like, you know, our biggest global stars and amazing actors. God, amazing actors.
And how long were you on that for?
I was there for the last 3 years of it. I came with God. We're very lucky. It was produced by Paul Cusack at that stage. So I had started to get theatre work while I was in Glenroe, and Paul, and I think he knew because he came from that family of theatre, he would kind of let me off to do a play, and I'd come back and keep going with Glenroe and go off, or manage to do the two together. Yeah. And I always thank him for that. So by the time it finished, I was kind of back on a good roll of theatre again, and it was kind of lovely to get back on the boards. So yeah, 2-3 years I think, and then it finished up.
And what theatre work kind of had you been doing during that time? What kind of had happened?
I had done stuff in the Abbey. I think I had done School for Scandal.
Yeah.
And then I did on Thrill for Arkland Dahija. So it was a lovely variety of stuff and really nourishing.
Yeah.
I loved Glenroe because all my scenes were basically shot outside because I played the vet.
Yeah.
I still have the best memories of getting the white bus from RT with Mick Lally, who was just a dream, and Geraldine Plunkett and Mary McAvoy and the beautiful Emma Bergen, and just going, we're out filming all day long in Wicklow, and you go to Hunters for your lunch in the time when it was just, there was loads of money. And this is living the dream. This is amazing. So all my stuff was out in the farm, which was great. I wasn't in studio, you know, it just felt like you were making a mini film every week.
And working with animals.
And working with animals, Jesus, the amount of times people say, oh, so have you put your hand up the cow's ass? Yes. No, I haven't. But I did. I do remember. It was, remember foot and mouth disease?
Yeah.
So, of course, Glenroe had to write in a big story. So I got very busy during foot and mouth disease. Lucy Riley, the vet. Yeah. Yeah, it was a great storyline that we thought Miley's Captain had foot and mouth disease, which would have ruined him. So I had these big white suits and masks. And, oh, I was in my element.
And was there a moment then when that finished and kind of, what was there, because at that stage, I think, you said your career kind of had taken another jump in the theatre scene. But like, did Glenroe lead on to more TV and kind of film work for you?
There still wasn't, that was kind of, Glenroe and Fair City were kind of still the only kind of TV stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of went back into theatre, not consciously, but that's where the work started to happen for me.
Yeah.
And I started working with John Crowley, this play called True Lines,
Yeah.
which was amazing, So I still remember that's still one of the most important experiences of my life. Bickerstaff company that Richard Cook ran, it was just so fucking happy, and we were creating. It was a devised piece, and so that happened after that. So I was just being fed. It was good times, and that went to London and to the Bush Theatre. So work breeds work. So I was lucky for a while. I was getting to work with really great people.
Yeah, but there's also a sense there as well, Cathy, that there's emergent cultural moments and scenes that you've been part of. I mean, you mentioned Galway and kind of being around, as a child around Druid, and then, Kilkenny similarly with kind of Bickerstaff. There was a real sense. I remember that time well, and I remember True Line, that sense of like a whole new emergence happening there.
Yeah, amazing. You didn't. I remember John, sure, he's a genius. He's extraordinary, but we didn't know what we had our hands until the first preview. We were still backstage going, okay, this happens, and I need to be on the other side of the stage, and have we finished it? Is it, and how it just kind of grew. Word got out. It didn't pack out in Kilkenny.
Really?
No, it didn't. It took ages. I remember John and lovely John Clear and Anne Clear, who owned Clear's Pub, and we'd come out every night, and they'd go, how many in tonight? Oh, 5. They get better. They were amazing. And Richard, what vision. I mean, he's a visionary, Richard Cook.
Yeah.
He was ridiculously gifted.
Yeah, I mean, there was a special time, and it also was a special time then. If you look at in Ireland in theatre around those times, there was things starting to happen in Dublin, which were different. Kilkenny and Galway.
In City Arts Centre, that hub.
Yeah. And looking at what you've done as well, I mean, maybe let's stick to theatre for a few minutes. That just because you worked across all the big, you worked in the Gate and the Abbey a lot, and you got to work with one of my heroes, Alan Rickman, which must have been extraordinary, was it?
Amazing, yeah, generous man, just so generous with his time and his care. He hadn't been on stage in a few years. It was a scary thing for him to do, and I admire his courage to come back.
Yeah.
And watching him never stop working. Even when we went to New York, he was still working on the piece. And it was a really generous gift he gave me with his last film, giving me that part in it,
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. And I think, there's also your time in kind of being like, wasn't it? God, it was a Matchbox at Frank McGuinness.
Yeah.
So I know. As I said, I'm jumping all over the place now, but I'm just that to get to develop that one woman show. An extraordinary work, and that must have been an incredible thing as well. Was it, Cathy?
Amazing. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, Frank is such a gift. It was weird because it was tough. I think actors by nature are collaborative people. It's hard to do one person show. We may have to come back to that, unfortunately, but it's lonely. But something is so well written. It was weird. Every night I felt, it sounds really weird and I'm not mad, I swear to God, but all the characters I talked about, I felt they were all with me. Yeah. So it felt like a very crowded stage,
Yeah.
It was great, but most importantly, it was so precious to do it in my hometown.
Yes.
So precious, and to come back and do it for the Galway International Arts Festival. I mean, I was at home, you know. I was at home, and it was just great. Yeah.
And what's that like bringing shows back? I mean, when you kind of go back to,
Scary,
yeah,
very scary, you know, because that's where I come from. I love that city so much. Um, but it's a great bloody city. It loves its theatre. You know, that audiences in Galway, not, you know, not downing audiences anywhere
yeah,
else, but they're very sophisticated. Singing a lot of theatre. They're, it's, we brought True Lines actually to Galway as well. Yeah. I think especially during the arts festival, there's a buzz around that you just can't create any time anywhere else but that time. You know, people are just, they're mainlining art at
yeah.
that stage.
I
You
think
know,
the way I described the feeling around the Galway Arts Festival to someone once, it's not like it comes from without. It's like just Galway's turned up a bit louder. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's.
good.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not like it's kind of something different that comes in. It's just like it's more just more Galway rather than
as if we could get any more lines.
well. Um,
Yeah.
there's a sense as well of spoken to a lot of actors about the buzz of being in first productions of shows, and you've had brilliant experiences of being in like Frail. Did you do? Would you? No, sorry, not you were in sorry, Frank McGuinness, and there was other shows there. And is that different for you, Cathy? Is there a different sense of knowing that I'm going to be the first person here?
Yeah, it is completely different. It's more terrifying. It's dangerous. It's exciting, um, and that first breath, you know, of giving birth to a new play, and for the writer, it's so important. It's their baby, and you want to bring it out to the world. It is as precious as a new baby. The
Yeah,
pressure is more to give it the right voice, to let it breathe, um, and live on. So yeah, I think it's more scary,
mm,
but much more exciting. You know,
yeah,
because you genuinely starting from scratch. It's you.
yeah. And then I suppose working with kind of writers. Like I mean, you mentioned a one person show with kind of with Frank's work, but I mean, then there was a kind of a kind of a well, one person show, but like Mark showed the approach where there was the three of us, but and
Oh, amazing! I love
yeah,
Mark so much, so much.
but that show really took off. I mean, that ended up going to Edinburgh, and fantastic show.
That was, again, that was, it was tough work, but it was joyous work. Christ, I couldn't wait to get into rehearsals every morning, because that's the type of man Mark is. He strips everything down. Do you know what I mean? There are no easy ways into his work, or especially when he's directing. Truth, paring down, that's the essence. So you have to go in there with just like your clothes off, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and that was, and then working with dear friends, Aisling and Dervla, like it was one of the greatest gifts that a writer's ever given me.
yeah. Okay.
To write that for us was so special, and working with somebody at Landmark, and it was interesting. I hadn't worked with Landmark since I did their first show many years, 20 years at Landmark. Skylight, that
Yeah.
was the first show they did. And I hadn't worked with them until the approach. And they're an incredible, Anne Clark is an incredible beacon of light in Irish theatre. And I love that the symbol of the lighthouse is their, symbol for Landmark, because it's so true. They spread such light. So yeah, to be back with a new play by beloved Mark, with the incredible Landmark producing with the girls, it was perfect. It was really, but it was tough. And we had to run that play every single night before we went on stage. And in Edinburgh, obviously, the times were different. We were at lunchtime. We all lived together, the three of us. We would run that play every single day before we did it. You had to, with that language. It had to be that effortless. It was a piece of music we were singing together.
Yeah, and it's
And
interesting. Yeah, I think to go back from there to you seem to have great affinity with writers, with, you know, having worked with, you know, and Tom Murphy's work and kind of, you know, and I think that's, as a director, that's a real gift of an actor to be able to, you know, to kind of get Marco Rowe's work, McGuinness's work, you know, Murphy's work, and just to get a sense of inhabiting that space must be extraordinary.
I think, you know, the play is the thing, writing. If it's not good, how can you really sing? It's a great interview we just finished 86 episodes of The Sopranos. Amazing to revisit it. Yeah. Amazing. The writing. And we looked at an interview with the Actors Studio with James Gandolfini, who's just an extraordinary actor. And he says, what are the 3 things that make you take a job? And he went, 3 things: writing. I'm inclined to agree with them.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's everything. After that, it's a bonus if you get the wonderful director and the cast. But writing's where it's at. And I think we are gifted in this country with so many amazing writers. I'm so proud. So proud. And they're coming, and this new voice that's emerging. And this week with the Dear Ireland stuff, I'm in awe of the talent on tap.
Yeah. No, it's extraordinary. And actually, you know, when I was looking back yesterday over your CV, it was like, God, because I've seen you in so much over the years, but the sense of remembering the shows that you kind of because you see so much work, you kind of forget. But like going back, you know, to the house back whenever, you know, that.
God, what a play! What a play!
Yeah.
That was again. Oh, bless it, Tom. I mean, it's really bad to pick one, but because he is the one reason I'm an actor, you know, yeah. I love his writing so much. But that production, Annabelle Cumming, amazing director, and everybody was so right in their casting. You know, when everything, it's that alchemy.
Yeah,
it all happened on that, and because of that, it was very happy. It was hard work, but it was so happy. I look back on that, yeah, and that was extraordinary. We knew everybody was singing from the same hymn sheet in that one.
Well, that was. I mean, I suppose the one thing I remember about that production was just the precision in everything. Do you know what I mean? There was. I don't mean that in a kind of cold way, but therefore there's freedom. Do you know what I mean? I think the real sense of precision in what everybody was doing.
Yeah, and now because we don't have Tom with us, to have him in the room with us was such a gift, you know, and he would just look at you and go, no, that's 3 dots there, and that's a pause, and you're going, remember this, Cathy, remember this, you know.
Yeah.
And then to have somebody like Annabelle who is so precise, you know, you have to learn it like I think when the writing is that good, you have to learn it like a piece of music.
Yeah.
It makes your job so much easier then. You know, it's hard when you're learning this. You want to throw yourself over the balcony. I hate it.
Really?
Oh, Jesus. I don't have a photographic memory. I wish I did. I have friends who have actors and I hate them for it. I have to put in the graft. I really do. I'm so blessed that I have a very patient, brilliant husband. Who, God love him, he's still like, I don't know, he's so patient, and he does the right.
He'd probably be able to play every other part in Irish theatre over the last 25 years.
Oh yeah. Well, we met late in life, so when I met Brian, my beautiful love, I had started to learn the matchbox.
Oh Jesus! Okay.
That's an hour and 50. And I thought, God, if he's stuck with me for that, he'll stick with me for anything. And he did. He did. You know.
Just talk to you about that's a very interesting process for those, well, even those within the theatre, but certainly for those that don't work in the theatre, because you know by yourself, how do you learn all those lines? And you know, but I think.
No, it's a great question, Mark. When somebody says, how do you learn all those lines?
Well, do you have 4 hours? But I'm interested though in the different processes around that. Do you learn more by being? Would you prefer being on the floor learning, like learning that way, or is it as difficult?
It's something like the Matchbox, a one-woman show. I had to have that off before I started rehearsals because that's too much.
Yeah.
You can't be in rehearsals and create and play if you're worried about lines when it's that mammoth of lines. When I was younger, I think I would wait until day one and start. Now what I tend to do is I have a good chunk of big stuff under my belt before I go into rehearsal. But ultimately, it still has to be there. If I go in and it's all no perfect and done, I find that hard as well. It has to be somewhere, because I don't want to make choices about stuff until I find myself in the room with the wonderful actor I'm playing opposite.
Yes.
But I do think it's really important to have as much as you can under your belt and ready to come. Homework.
Yeah.
So how I tend to do it is I record them.
Okay.
And I listen to them when I'm walking the dog, or I listen to them. And then for accuracy, I have it there, and I'm looking at the punctuation. I'm looking at it when it's a well-written piece.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then by week 2, then I would hope to be off book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Stumbling through a run through.
Yeah.
But listen, it all depends on the show. And then if it's new writing and it's changing during rehearsals, you have to be match fit enough to know, okay, that's gone, and you've just given me this. Okay, and that's my job. And it was interesting. I'm listening to a great podcast at the moment. Here's the Thing by Alec Baldwin. It's brilliant. I was listening to a great one with Jeff Daniels, which every actor should listen to. It's just beautiful. It's all about the work for him. But he's talking about playing Atticus Finch in Broadway until the pandemic.
Yeah.
And how they were still working up until the preview with masses of stuff being taken out, masses of stuff being taken in. And this man was holding the show that he was going to Broadway for the year. And he says, you have to be ready. That is your job.
Yeah.
You go home, you get sleep, you don't party, you eat well, and you take the notes and the new things you have to learn to make this the best it can be. And that's Jeff Daniels. And it gives me such hope to go, yes, it really is that hard.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's also a craft. I mean, I think that's kind of, that I think, public perception can be very wrong in relation to kind of that you all just arrive, whether on film or on stage or in TV. Yes, people know you rehearse, but they kind of forget that. And I mean, kind of being flippant about that, horrific question about how you learn all your lines. But that sense of actually, people, I think there's like you mentioned, the Matchbox. That's a lot of kind of graft in getting that. Never mind the character, but getting that amount of
memory. Yeah. I found with that, the more I learned, you find the expansion in your brain. And a weird way for me with the Matchbox is I swam my units of lines, my chapters. So every day before I did the Matchbox, I'd swim. Beautiful, wonderful Paul Fahey got me a pass for the pool in the Radisson, because he's just one of those amazing artistic directors. And because and I used to swim the play. I swam the play every day before I did it. And I had to do that. There was no way I could have done that show and be easeful without having worked it through my body every day.
Yeah, wow. And then that is very different then when you move into film and TV, that kind of, obviously you still have lines to learn, but when you're doing, Glen Road, Red Rock, or, any of the other great films you've been involved in, what's that like?
It's another way again. Sometimes you get in scripts an hour before you go on set, or 2 hours, or the night before. But I think with something we'd say like Red Rock or Glen Road, where there's you're with that character, you know her more than anybody else. It becomes easier, it becomes easier and faster to learn lines. But again, when the writing is good, it has to be spot on. You owe it to great writers. When the writing is bad, you're working harder and you're going, okay, maybe if we did this and maybe we did this. But it does. But it's still, for me, there's some, and it's also subjective, Mark. I have still no idea what's right and what's wrong. You can only follow your instinct or what works and gets you to try and have some semblance of a truthful, real character. But, with TV and film, you could be doing a film, and I find the hardest thing is you do a big intense scene and then you 2 weeks later, you go and you travel and you're walking in that door, and that's the shot.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's more memory and taking things down and placing yourself within your own journey. It's
Yeah.
kind of more mapping rather than the amount of lines, because there isn't the amount of lines you have, generally in movies.
Yeah.
You don't talk the way you do in theatre.
I mean, and you kind of really, really interesting about film. I saw you recently in Herself in Claire's
Oh,
film.
Claire Dunn. What
Yeah.
a gifted girl. What a beautiful.
And beautiful part you had as well, I think.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I thought Claire was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And what she's accomplished is so exciting to see a young woman do that,
But I think there was a precision around that, around the sense. I mean, your character relationship, and I think that the layers were there. I think that kind of
that was in the writing. It was so well written as well. Do you know that relationship she had with Claire, Joe, who I played, that was all there. It was very easy to access somebody when it's well drawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited for Claire Dunn with that film. I really am. I think it's great for, even, I was saying this to a friend of mine, going, when I came out of college, the idea that you would write and star in your own feature film in Ireland.
Yeah.
A woman? Not at all.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
She's a special talent.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, kind of, I'm picking my favorites here, but like Roy, for example. How did that happen for you?
Okay, that was mental. Jesus! Again, brilliant scripts. That was an audition. With Alan Shannon, who created it, and the boys at Jam, and I forget the woman who was head of BBC at the time, BBC children's program. But I remember just going in. I can get 3 callbacks for that, but somehow I got the part. And it was a joy working with Simon Delaney on that. It was just great fun. And the little Scott Graham, who was the first little Roy, was a kid, and he was there all day long, even though we never saw him. Amazing actor.
Wow.
And his friends, young Fionn O'Shea now, who's just done heights of stardom. He was Roy's friend. It was so exciting to see these kids being so brilliant. It was such fun. Amazing. PJ Dillon filmed the first, his series, and Fionn Comerford. It was amazing. It was joyous. But I do remember there was kind of mad days where we just lost the plot. I remember there was one episode where Roy shrank, and I spent the morning being shot talking to a tennis ball, because that was Roy, on a stick, and feeding him on a little egg cup because he had shrunk, and Minnie took me breakfast and going, "You all right there, Roy? Yeah, there's your breakfast now." And I remember going, "Oh my God, what am I in? What has happened?" Lunacy, wonderful lunacy,
Yeah. But I think that, and also, you look at the last few years, there's kind of really, on the screen, like from working with Alison Spittle.
A great woman.
Yeah, she is extraordinary.
Yeah, great. Right.
Series.
What?
It was a great series as well.
Great series, yeah, really great. It was a joy to do, absolute joy to do.
But and then with the Woman in White and the BBC, and
yeah.
I just think that, and then the couple that around the same. I mean, that's a busy roster when you take in around similar times. You were doing The Approach, you were doing Matchbox, you were doing Helen and I. I mean, that's a lot.
It was a gift, though, isn't it? Jesus, I say, when the work is like that, it's just, you just feel blessed, because you are, no matter who you are, you're going to be sitting on that sofa for a certain amount of time every year. You don't work every day of the year. I filmed Woman in White at the exact same time as Nowhere Fast.
Wow.
And I remember there was one morning where I shot Woman in White at night. They drove me from Belfast, because we shot it in Belfast. And I was on set, and I remember going, okay, oh yeah, I'm back in Mullingar. And I just went, this is glorious business. You know, it was
That's
just
going to be the very interesting episode of Nowhere Fast if you had to kind of say. Yeah.
we're without a costume. It's the English mother.
And in relation to the public, do you get recognized? Do you get kind of, has Red Rock kind of, has there been any of that happen in your life?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, you do. Dublin's really cool, though. I think they're used to seeing people, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or somebody's looking at you going, I know her. Is she in my child's class? You know, who is she? No one. But yeah, and people have been so lovely. Oh my God. I love it. I really do. I still get a thrill when people say, oh, you know, you're an awful bitch in Red Rock, or, you know, well done in that. I think it's huge generosity in people to take the time to come up and say something, and I'm very grateful for that, and I always will be very grateful.
And do you still? I'd say there's a generation also that might still chat to you about Glen Rose, about Lucy.
Yeah. Sue Riley. Yeah, absolutely. There were still people, or they'd know you, but then they'd go, did I? Or if you tell them, not so much now. When I was shooting Glenroe all those years ago, oh my God, everywhere you went. Everywhere.
Were you opening ATMs, Cathy? There was no...
Never got that, no. Did I open anything? Did I open? I think I opened something to do with veterinary food or something. And I loved it. I just went, this is true stardom. Yes.
I won't keep much longer, but I was interested in, because I really got a sense of you when you were sitting, you know, back at 14, watching Conversations at Homecoming and feeding off that feeling that you want to have the feeling of not just being watching, but what you imagined they were having. That must be incredible to kind of still be doing that and still be searching for that, and still is that still a great feeling?
Yeah, it is. I feel very privileged to be part of this community and doing what I love. I really do. God, don't get me wrong, Mark. There are days when I go, why couldn't I have picked an easier life? This is so hard because we have to be so thin on the outside. We have to let our skin be absolute transparent. And yet we have to have balls of steel to have the courage to keep going in a very tough business, which I think will get tougher now after this pandemic, you know. So yeah, I feel, I do. I really believe in the magic and the healing of theatre and TV and film and art, and I feel very privileged and very feckin' lucky to be still doing it.
Well, come here to tell you, we're very lucky that you are still doing it, and we're very privileged to. Well, absolutely, yes. Now that I have you in front of me, it's been an absolute joy to kind of watch you, and look forward to watching you again. And thank you very much for taking part in this. It's been an absolute honour.
And thank you for shedding such light with these talks at the moment in these times. I'm loving them. You're playing a blinder. You're keeping the theatre open.
Listen, thanks a million, Cathy, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, darling.
Bye-bye.